You may not quite understand what CLV is, and it can often be overlooked, but what if I told you that CLV could be the most important metric to consider in your sports betting? At the end of this video, you're going to have a complete understanding of what CLV is, and more importantly, how it can make you money. Welcome to Betstamp, your go-to source for all things sports betting. In this video, we're going to cover one of the most crucial concepts in sports betting, closing line value. If you want to take your betting game to the next level, then you need to stick around to the end of the video to hear all of the 6 key pieces of information I'm going to give, because at the end, I guarantee you'll have a better understanding of how to profit long term. Before we get started, we need to understand what the closing line actually is. Essentially, it is the final betting line offered by the sportsbook before the start of the sporting event. It's the most accurate reflection of the betting market's consensus on the actual outcome of the event. For example, let's say we're building up to a Sunday night primetime game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. On the Monday before that event, we could see the Kansas City Chiefs priced at -130 on the money line. But when it comes to game time on Sunday, those odds could shift, and now the Chiefs could be priced at -150 on the money line. Therefore, the -150 is the closing line because it was the final line offered up by the sportsbook before the event began. Not only is gaining positive closing line value on your wagers important, but it's likely paramount to your success as a sports bettor. The closing line is an important factor to consider because it is likely where the market is at its most efficient. The closing line incorporates all of the possible information that we can have on a specific event when it comes to injuries, when it comes to weather, when it comes to expert insights. There is no more further information that can be shared about the event because the event is about to start. Therefore, it provides the closest possible indicator as to what the true odds or the fair odds should be for that specific event. There are several factors which can influence the closing line, going all the way from injuries to things like the weather. Pretty much anything can have an effect on the betting markets. For example, if the weather is projected to be poor for an NFL game, then perhaps the betting markets will shift accordingly to reflect poor playing conditions that make it more difficult to play, and therefore the total of the game could go a little bit lower. If a key player like a starting quarterback is all of a sudden ruled out through injury, then the betting markets are going to adjust for that team accordingly. Factors such as these are public knowledge, and we are aware of why the betting market is shifting as a result, but sometimes expert sports bettors themselves can have an influence on what the closing line is going to be. Suppose a sportsbook has a bettor who they have identified as a long-term winner. If that sports bettor were to make a sizable wager on any specific market, the sportsbook will adjust accordingly, knowing that if this player is a clearly long-term winner, he must know something about this price to deem that it's profitable, and therefore they will shift accordingly so that nobody else can hit the same line. Sportsbooks can make themselves more efficient by considering these expert sports bets. You can almost treat it like bookmakers are playing defense and sports bettors are playing the offense. Closing line value, or CLV, is a comparison between the odds at which you placed your wager to the odds at the closing line. In essence, it's a way to gauge the value of your bets over time. Let's go back to our example between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. Let's say on that Monday, you placed a wager on the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw that the closing line was -150. Therefore, you placed your wager at a superior price for yourself to make that wager than what would have been available to you at the closing line. But conversely, if you were to have placed a wager on the Buffalo Bills on that Monday, perhaps you would have gotten them at +110 odds, but the closing line was +130. Therefore, you got an inferior price to what the closing line was. Closing line value works by comparing the odds at which you made your wager compared to the odds at the closing line. If you are consistently betting at odds that are better than what the closing line ends up being, then it determines that you have an edge and that you're likely going to be a profitable sports bettor in the long run. This is because you are getting better odds than what we have already determined to be the most efficient line the sportsbook can come up with. The term efficient is when the sportsbook is at its most efficient in profiting off its players like yourself. Therefore, once again, if you are consistently beating this most efficient line, you are setting yourself up for a lot of success in the long run as a sports bettor. Previously, we talked about the importance of closing line and a little bit about the importance of closing line value and finding positive value at that. We've already been over how closing line is the most efficient number that a sportsbook can come up with. Therefore, it's the closest indicator of what we can deem as true or fair odds for the event. To better understand what true odds are, then consider this example with a coin flip, which is the best example we have of something that is exactly a 50-50 chance. Therefore, the true odds for this event are 50% of the time it will land on heads, and and 50% of the time, it will land on tails. Therefore, if a sportsbook were providing the true or fair odd for this event, they would price it at plus 100 for heads and plus 100 for tails. But as we know, that's not how they would price an event like this. They would probably price the event somewhere in the range of minus 110 for heads and minus 110 for tails. Therefore, you are not betting at the true odd for the event. Therefore, in the long run, you are very, very, very likely to lose betting on minus 110 for an outcome that has a 50% chance of occurring. But what if you're consistently getting a better price than that plus 100 on a market that has, in theory, a 50% chance of occurring? Now we're getting into how closing line value can actually help you become a profitable sports bettor. In our 50-50 coin flip example, if you're consistently betting on a certain market there at plus 105 odds, then over time, you are going to profit on that wager significantly. You may lose some, and you may lose 50% of the time, but 50% of the time, if you are winning at plus 105 odds, again, you will be profitable long term. If you were to flip a coin 10 times, you might get heads and tails 5 times each, but you also might get tails 8 out of 10 times. It's a small sample, therefore the variance is increased. But as we continue to increase the sample size, if we flip the coin 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, the more times we flip the coin, the more likely we are to reduce the variance and the more likely we are to render a result that reflects the true or fair odds of the event, landing on heads and tails 50% of the time each. So this works for any wager, even if it's not a 50% chance on each side. If you place a wager at a sportsbook and the closing line at fair odds is inferior to the number that you got when you actually made your wager, you can expect to profit long term on that sports bet. To calculate closing line value, you need to compare the odds at which you place your wager at and the win probability of the wager at the closing line. Firstly, remove the VIG from the odds at which you place your wager at and then convert to decimal odds. From there, you can remove the VIG from the closing line and therefore determine the most efficient and fair price for the event. Your closing line value will be 100 times the closing line win probability minus the win probability that would have been present at the time of your wager over your win probability at the time of your wager. And again, you want to consistently be in the positive with your closing line to ensure maximum winning potential. Now that you know how to calculate closing line value, you know how tedious of a task it can be, having to track both sides of the market when you place your wager and remove the VIG, then having to keep track of what the line closes at the start of the event. It's just not really worth all of that effort when there is an odds comparison tool that does help with closing line value tracking, such as the Betstamp app. The power of a tool like the Betstamp app makes it so much easier to track things like closing line value, and therefore it gives me a better sort of sense of my performance as a sports bettor. Let's say I were to have bet on the Super Bowl between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. Now, we already know the result of the game, but let's say I were to have placed a wager on the Chiefs at plus 140 on the money line. I could track this in my bet slip, and at the conclusion of the event, Betstamp will let me know whether or not this wager has won, and it will also reveal the closing line value of my wager. So if I got them at plus 140 and it closed at plus 122, I see I have a positive CLV of 3.4%. Therefore, I have a very good wager here. But the power of the Betstamp tool also allows you to analyze your progress over time to see if you are consistently getting that positive CLV in the long run. A key part of becoming a successful sports bettor is tracking your wagers and tracking your progress over time. So let's wrap things up. If you fail to understand the importance of closing line value, you are going to make it so much more difficult for yourself to profit in the long term. Not only are you battling against what the market has deemed to be the most efficient price for an event, but you're also literally leaving money on the table. When you are placing wagers and you are not getting positive closing line value, you are going to be making less money on your winning wagers and you are going to be losing more money on your losing wagers. In some extreme cases, you could feel as though you are on the right side of a bet, such as a point spread, but you could still lose the wager because you did not optimize your chances by getting the best line available. Now that you're clear on what CLV is and how it can help you profit, let's introduce you to Betstamp's premium odds screen in Betstamp PRO. This is a tool that will consistently help you achieve positive CLV on your wagers. Betstamp PRO identifies market inefficiencies and edges in real time, giving you a significant advantage when top-down betting. With access to data from over 100 sportsbooks, including retail, offshores, DFS, sweepstakes, exchanges, and paperheads, you'll have a comprehensive view of the betting landscape. Imagine having a tool that will quickly spot lines that will likely move in your favor, generating you CLV before the market adjusts. That is exactly what you'll be able to achieve using Betstamp PRO. Let's take a look at this example here. All we have to do is sign up to Betstamp PRO, choose the sport, and then we can sort by minimum hold, max edge, or max EV. So, for example, we can go to the max edge and see that one of the top picks on the board right now is Kawhi Leonard over on points and rebounds, where we have a 6.29% edge and 11.7% expected value. Now, with this price being probably off market here, we are likely to see this line move in our favor and therefore give us positive CLV. Betstamp PRO identifies these edges before the book has a chance to adjust to the true market price. Our software also tracks line movement from the moment the market opens until it closes. This means that you'll have all the information necessary to be on the right side of line moves, giving you critical CLV, which is essential to being a profitable long-term sports bettor. Interested in checking it out? Apply for your one-on-one demo today by visiting betstamp.com/pro and take your sports betting to the next level. As I've been saying, maximizing your profitability by focusing on CLV is essential to sports betting. You are giving yourself a handicap when you fail to consider the closing line, and that's the bottom line. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this video helpful or informative, then make sure you do hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to Betstamp for more content just like this that's going to make you a more profitable sports bettor. Leave us a comment for your thoughts on closing line value, and we'll see you at the next one. Good luck on your next wager.